And for my research now, I'm realizing that Neuralink is basically like a red herring, that like they're showing technology that's like 25, 30 years old and being like, oh, it's just in development now. We're testing on like 2 or 3 people. But in reality, they're way far past that. DARPA is 30, 40 years past that. The Neuralink's insane. It's like, this big thing they implant in your head with like tendrils that go into your your motor cortex or whatever. No, now they can have a very, very small chip that just rests on a nerve and collects all those signals, and then it runs off of piezoelectricity. So you're basically sound powers it, so it doesn't die or run out of batteries or anything like that. It uses piezoelectric charge, which converts ultrasound into mechanical energy, which then powers the chip. And that's what they use. That's standard for medical implants. And then beyond that now, DARPA is using, I think it's called the N3 program, where they're using, nanoparticles. So you're talking about them using basically magnetic nanoparticles and graphene oxide nanostructures that can basically act as an implant without having anybody have to inject you with anything or do any surgical procedure. And that's the state of it now, I think.
I'm Rye, your Kodega, here to lead you through the shadows of the unknown. My journeys have carried me across hidden corners of the world to places steeped in wonder, whispers, and unanswered questions. Walk with me as we uncover ancient civilizations, unravel unexplained phenomena, and chase the legends that refuse to die. Welcome to Kodega's Codex of Curiosities. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Kodega's Codex of Curiosities. Now, some stories, they don't begin with answers. They begin with disruptions, whether it be a phone that just doesn't feel private anymore, a computer that suddenly turns against you, a home that doesn't feel safe. It feels altered. Now, tonight's guest says his life changed when his digital world collapsed, his reality fractured, and an unseen pressure began to make itself known through technology, through perception, and through voices that he claims were never supposed to be there. I know we've heard this before. We've heard something similar like this before. So Ben describes himself and his wife as targeted individuals, a subject, of course, that I've touched on a couple of times now. He believes their experience is part of a much larger hidden system, one that involves advanced tech, psychological influence, and even networks operating in the shadows with ties that he says reach far beyond what most people would expect. Maybe you've heard of the Finders. Maybe. You might want to check that one out. So for the past 2 years, Ben has been researching, documenting, and speaking publicly about what he believes is happening. Now, he is talking to other people who claim similar experiences. And like I said, we've talked to a couple of them already. And tonight, he's going to join me and share his story, the conclusions he's drawn, and the questions he believes we should all be asking. Now, of course, this episode is not about easy answers. It's It's about hearing a perspective that exists probably somewhere further off the edge of our own realities. Of it's touching on fear, modern fear, I would say, technology, and trust. And I want to let you decide what to make of it. All right, guys, before we jump into this interview, one last time, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, make sure you give that 5-star review. If you're enjoying the show, leave a comment as well, what you like about the show. Perhaps you got any ideas for any future guests too. All right, let's not keep our guests waiting anymore. Ben, welcome to Codega's Codex of Curiosities.
Hi, thank you.
Great to have you here. You reached out to me, and I think it was after a couple of of my interviews that I've had with Kevin, and I'm interested to hear your story. But before we jump into your story, can you give us a little background of yourself and maybe where people can find you too if they want to look you up?
Yeah. Ever since I was targeted, I been reaching out to other targeted individuals and really saw that there was a lot of confusion. So I, thought that one of the best things I could do was to start a Substack and a YouTube channel. Most of the videos out now are just my interviews that I've done with like Frank Allen, Derek Robinson, and Richard Syett, Strange Planet. I'm trying to get like the word out to try to connect people together as far as targeted individuals, because there's a lot of division and confusion. So.
Yeah, I would definitely say there's always this form of division upon anything, because some people might experience something that you're not experiencing. So their perspective is, well, this is what it is. It's not what you're saying. And there's other people who experience something else different. And they're like, no, you're wrong. This is what it is. But in reality, I think it's an accumulation of everything. It could be that it's a bit of this, it's a bit of that. Maybe you're not experiencing it, but it's also this I don't know what to call it, but this thing that I don't think many people know about. I think it's been around a lot longer than we care to believe, but this is a phenomena that is not really talked about all that much. And I'm glad that you're doing something about it, and you're trying to bring these people together and maybe clear up any issues or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying the best I can. I try to back up. One of the things that originally happened was, or that I noticed after I got through the initial fog of I would say the first salvo of the targeting, is that it was just a psychological attack that just causes massive confusion. They want you to basically think, every single I would go through periods where every day I had a different idea of what was happening and who was doing it and why at certain points. But one pattern I noticed from talking to dozens of different TIs was that they want you to think that your neighbors are after you. They want you to think that your family is in on it. They want you to think, the local town council, the mailman is spying on you, all sorts of really, out there type of stuff to try to confuse people and then make them look mentally ill, to further isolate them. And so nobody will actually believe you, and they'll just think you're mentally ill, which seems to be the main objective in the beginning of targeting.
I completely agree. This mental illness is something that is closely associated with this. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, there's schizophrenia or there's something else like that. And your concerns or your actual real issues are brushed aside because you're just mentally unstable. There's something mentally wrong with you. And, like you said, when they're trying to convince you that it's your family, your friends, your neighbors, the postman, I don't think that is legit. I think that it's whoever's doing this is creating a form of paranoia where you lose all sense of trust in anybody and anything. Yeah. And even if someone looks at you kind of funny, that's a person. But I think it's kind of in essence, it's a form of MK Ultra. I really believe that this is what it is.
Oh, yes, it is. Yeah.
But, all right, Ben. So let's we kind of know this, but let's start where it started for you. If you can go back to, do you have like a exact moment or time that you can actually say this is when it began?
Yeah. So I mean, there's definitely. I mean, for when I was like we call it like overtly targeted. When you become aware of it, they let you know, and it's something that in the counterintelligence community is called active surveillance. And active surveillance is when the surveillance is done in a way where they let you know that they're watching you. And many people think that they're discovering it, by themselves, but we're dealing with people that know what they're doing. These are tactics that are pretty well established, and what they're doing is called active surveillance. So for me, all of a sudden, my computer basically wasn't working anymore. Like all I did was use it to research and to play video games, and now all of a sudden it was like it barely worked. Um, when I took it offline, thinking I had a virus, I found like all sorts of crazy malware on there, and living off the land attacks. Like I had to look this stuff up. I'm not like a computer expert or anything like that, but I mean they had gone through my registry and Windows and changed all sorts of stuff, added all sorts of weird registry keys. And then they had also, well, I'm not going to get into, don't want to get into the weeds of all this stuff, but yeah, then I found software on there, spyware, that did stuff like if you go to turn the computer off, leave it in hibernation mode, and leave the microphone on and stuff like that. So, I'm no computer expert, but just by going through my computer a little bit and switching to a different user account on my Windows, I was able to find this thing called special Windows options that basically showed that I was being spied on. And now I think that was basically like left there for me to freak out and to know that I was being watched. Because, I mean, they have advanced malware now and spyware. You shouldn't be able to detect that kind of stuff if you're just like a layman like me. Um, so this was part of the initial active surveillance stage where they were trying to freak me out. And during that time was when I started experiencing what I think of as overt or covert, V2K, where it's not like voices in your head. It's not like that weird, audio transmission of like somebody talking to you. It sounded like people were creeping around my house. I had extreme like feelings of like paranoia and being nervous. And yeah, it was basically a campaign to start freaking me out. And I started getting ideas in my head that my neighbors had hacked me and were doing this stuff. And this was the beginning of it, where I was just kind of just constantly every day, like, what's going on? Why is my computer hacked like this? I mean, they broke into all my email accounts, my Outlook, my Gmail. They had access to, I had my banking information on my computer, and I found, what's it called? Bankster malware, which is like something that actually steals your banking information. So I knew that they could take money out of my banking account, but they didn't. And it was just kind of something to scare me and start making me very nervous. And this is like, something that a lot of TIs experience in like their initial phases, and sometimes just keeps going on, indefinitely for a lot of people. Because I think it depends on people, kind of, I don't know, understand what's happening to them. If people don't really realize that it's kind of like an operation to make you go crazy, then they progress to different stages and do different tactics. Um, and for me, like, I was definitely in that stage for a couple months where I didn't know what was happening. I thought, anything from like, the FBI or the CIA was mad at me for posting, because I love to post about conspiracies. I was big into researching the government. I had been posting on a Discord about, different aspects of the COVID, I'd say operation and all that stuff. Israel and Mossad and the CIA and all that stuff. I wasn't posting about UFOs.
All the juicy stuff. Yes.
Yeah, the juicy stuff. Yeah, the stuff that'll get you in trouble. And I thought it was that. But I had previous associations, because I was like a black market like marijuana grower for many years, and was in the cannabis kind of community, and I had walked away from it because it wasn't really profitable anymore, and you started to have to deal with like really kind of unsavory characters, and so I said I'm getting a regular job, I'm out of here, and I walked away, and so there was all these different things I was thinking, like, why is this happening? Like, first I thought it was like the FBI or CIA or Mossad or something, and then I thought maybe it was some organized crime that I'd been very 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 loosely affiliated with. But yeah, over time I realized that this is like a whole big program that is way bigger than any of that. I'm definitely intelligence communities, but I don't think it was because I was posting about conspiracies or that I've been involved in gray market, black market, marijuana stuff. And yeah. So at that point, I was basically living at this place, this apartment in Newton, Massachusetts. And first my computer got hacked. I took it offline. I thought I'd like took off all the malware off of it. I basically reinstalled Windows, did the whole thing, wiped my whole hard drive, put it back online.
Sorry, Ben, can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
So you weren't going on any unsavory sites or anything like that. Like you weren't I have to ask, like you weren't downloading these viruses yourself, or like I'm not saying like, oh, I have a virus, I'm gonna download that. Maybe were you downloading something that had malware included on it, or were you being just games and just like researching stuff?
Going to mainstream sites and playing, just going on Steam and playing like Dota and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really doing anything too crazy. There was, there was one very interesting dude that showed up right before this happened. I was playing this online video game, and this guy showed up, and he all of a sudden he wanted to play with me on this game Dota. And every time I would show up my Discord, I'd come home, he'd be waiting there to play with me, and he seemed very like I would say just he didn't like me. It seemed like he didn't really like me too much, and it was weird that he wanted to play. But I was just like, all right, that's fine. But he'd be waiting my Discord, and this is bizarre. So this guy basically, as I was playing with him, he would post like weird little link. He would be like, oh, check out, oh, you're a technician? Because I started becoming a laundry technician at that point. And he's like, oh, check out this tool belt. This is a cool tool belt. And he'd like post like a link in my Discord. And like I clicked a couple of those, and those could have been spoof sites to, packet sniffer type things, so that he could have got into my computer. But at one point, he starts saying things. He starts telling weird stories, and they are very close to my life, and stories that were in my life. And I was just kind of thinking. He was like, oh yeah, like I was with this Asian lady. Like I'm married to an Asian woman. He's like, I'm with this Asian lady and blah, blah, blah. And I just, I don't even care about her, and saying like really misogynistic, like messed up stuff. And I started like, he started like one story like that, then another story that was close to something that happened in my life. And I started thinking like, what is this guy like looking through my email, or like, is he, I'm not really on social media posting on anything. This is really weird. And I got freaked out. And I came home one day. And then one day he just says out of nowhere, he goes, I'm going to shoot up my office. I'm going to shoot up my office. And I go, what? And I was like, you don't even work in an office. You said you're like a manufacturing technician. And he was like, you just moved on and we kept playing the game. And I was like, don't say that stuff again, man. What are you talking about? And then like later on, he goes, I'm going to plant child pornography on your device. I'm going to plant child pornography on your computer. And at that point, I was like, all right, I'm done with this guy. I came home the next day. I go to block him. I'm literally scrolling through like how to block him on Steam and remove him from my Discord. And he starts spamming messages. Bam, 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 like on Steam. Hey, you gonna play? What are you doing? Hey, what's up, man? Just over and over and over again. And he'd never done that before. So it's like he knew I was like going to block him. And it was bizarre. And at that point, I mean, after I blocked him, and this is the same time that I was dealing with the viruses and stuff on my computer. I find out about ratting, where people can basically install, software in a computer to basically monitor it completely and see what you're doing, spy on you, which is weird because like I'm a wicked boring guy. Like I just like I work, I come home, I like look at government conspiracies, and I play
Do you
video games for
recall
like
his?
4 hours.
Sorry, do you recall his username by chance?
Yeah, it was Knox. It was Nox, Knox. And when I talked to him, this was interesting. He admitted that he grew up in Hawaii and that he was a son of he was his father was Russian born, but moved to America and was part of the Air Force, and said that he was basically an army brat. And and he seemed like a smart guy. So I mean, I put up with him because he was an asshole. Like he just was a jerk. But he seemed kind of smart. He wanted to play video games with me. So I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm from New England. I deal with a lot of assholes. That's fine. But yeah. So when that happened, I blocked him on everything, and literally the next day, and this was after I got my computer back online after you know, uh, finding all that spyware and stuff. And yeah, the next day it was like my computer basically just shut down. They'd gone through and used, it was like living off the land attack with like task scheduler to just basically like anytime I did certain things on my computer, just shut down my internet connection and do all sorts of crazy stuff that I didn't even understand. I still didn't understand. I gave up. And yeah, so shortly after that, um, my phone got hacked. Pretty much right after. My phone, which would last, the battery would last for like a day and a half. All of a sudden, it would only last for like half the day. The battery on it, and it would heat up like crazy. I couldn't I would try to go on the internet. It would just buffer. And shortly thereafter, I found, well, later on, there's so much to go through. So it gets confusing. But basically, I tried switching phones at that point. I was like, this phone is hacked. There's something the matter with it. I switched over to an iPhone because, at that point I'd been working at this company, Automatic Laundry in Newton, and they'd give me a business phone that was an iPhone. And I was talking to them why, and they were like, oh, it's the most secure thing. Nobody can really hack iPhones. That's why we use them. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to get an iPhone too. I got the iPhone, and as I was like loading up the updates and getting it going, it went offline. It came back online. It acted all weird, and I was like, what's happening? And then like later on, all the settings on it would change randomly. The settings would change. Again, it started running slow. The battery started dying. And there was a kind of like this on Apple or iPhones. There's like an option. It's like unshare all apps and stuff. It was like a safety feature. And I hit the safety feature because at that point I'm freaking out and I'm like, I need to do everything I can. And I hit this thing, and it says can't unshare on all apps. You're sharing app access with other people. You can't you can't unshare. And this was just a constant thing. Like I don't want to get caught up too much in all the hacking stuff, but like I called Apple. I talked with technicians on there for like an hour, and they went through all these different things, and they were just like, I don't know why this is happening. They're like, I don't know. Like, I have no idea. And at one point, the technician like threw up their hands and was like, all right, well, let me call you back in 10 minutes, and here's your case number. And so I wrote down the case number. I wait. I was working at the time. I was sitting there fixing a dryer. Like I had my head in a dryer, fixing a dryer with like my phone. Like, yeah, and then yeah, I did this. No, it doesn't work. And so like an hour goes by, and so I called them back, and I'm like, yeah, here's my case number. This is what I'm dealing with. And they're like, oh, the case number doesn't exist. I'm like, what? Well, I wrote it down. I was very careful. It's this number. I repeat it again. They're like, no, there's nothing there. Can you tell us again everything that happened? And I was like, I was just on the phone for an hour with this person, going over all these different steps of going through all these different options. You guys didn't write it down? Like they just didn't enter it in? And so this is where it gets weird. The guy,
this is where it gets weird.
This whole thing is just high strangeness the whole time. Like it's like you're in the Twilight Zone the whole time. Like it just was escalating weirdness for 2 years and hasn't stopped. And
I just want to, I'm going to say this for everybody who's listening. High battery use and your phone warming up a lot of times has to do with malware or spyware. Your phone is being hacked. There is a reason why this happens. It is because they are monitoring you and which uses up a lot more of your battery and your processing power, exactly like Ben is saying. So for those who are like, what does that mean? Your phone is warming up or heating up and the battery life is draining. It's exactly because of this. But please continue, Ben. So now it gets weird.
So they're like, all right, well, we're going to upgrade your case and we're going to send you to whatever their term was, level 2 technician or supervisor, whatever they said. I mean, I'm running around like working at the time, like as a field service technician. I'm trying to drive around to go fix washers and dryers as I'm talking on the phone with these people. And they connect me through to somebody and I explain the whole thing and what's been happening. Because like they were able to like literally like I was making phone calls and the phone would just ring forever. I would get connected with people that just like would say like I would call someplace. I would get connected to somebody who would talk to me and put me on hold and then keep me on hold. And then after like 20 minutes of being on hold for like calling whatever, someplace, to find a new hard drive or something for my computer, I'd hang up and I'd call back and it would be a different person entirely. And I would be like, well, I just called her. They're like, no, you didn't. Like, I'm the only person here. So like, I was being like connected to other people. I was being put on hold indefinitely when I would call places. My the signal would constantly just shut down for no reason. Again, constant buffering. So it was like my phone is being like messed with just to like drive up frustration and kind of mess with me. And so I was explaining all this stuff to this higher level technician, and the guy, it was this man, and he goes, "Oh, really?" He goes, "That's what's happening?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." And when I called earlier, you guys didn't remember my case number, and he starts laughing, and I'm like, I'm like, "Why are you laughing?" And then it just goes to like a white, like, just like a white noise, like static. And I mean, at that point, I just sat there like on speaker with like this like white noise static. And I was like, all right. And I just hung up the phone. So like even calling Apple, I just run into like these weird issues constantly. And I suspect now that my phone calls were being
redirected
or
intercepted. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they were messing with me in this way because I don't think Apple really operates that way normally. When you call in for help like that. So that's just an example of like one of the many things that happened. At a certain point, at this point, I was and I started seeing people follow me. So this only lasts for a short period of time, but I saw several different like Ford model cars that were following me. They were like brand new, like sedans, and I noticed them, and it was always like middle-aged white dudes. They were driving them, and a couple different times because I was a field service technician, so I was driving all around the Boston area, and I noticed them repeatedly. And at one point, when I was at this apartment in Newton, I just like got like a wild hair up my ass and just was like, I'm going to go outside because like my phone is getting messed with again. And at that point, I'm not a tech savvy guy. I'm like, I wonder if there's somebody in the area connecting through my Wi-Fi or my Bluetooth. I ran outside. I just like went down the stairs, went out in front of the apartment that I was in, and there were two of these Ford. I don't know what model it was, but two Ford sedans hanging out there, and dudes just on their phone like this. And as I walked up, like one of the dudes, I looked up like he looked like guilty. He looked like weirdly like looked at me like, oh, like crap, there he is. And I just walked by him. I kind of grilled him a little bit, but just looked at them. I just looked at him really. And I went around the block. Or I went to my car. I drove around the block, and when I drove back, like 1 minute later, they were gone. So there was like that in the beginning, but then all that stopped. All the following stopped, like on foot or anybody like that was in a car. I didn't see any of that. And I had this like extreme, it was like, it's hard to explain. Now, after a lot of research and dealing with this stuff, I realized, and reading Robert Duncan, and now I'm in contact with Dr. John Hall, who's wrote a couple different books on this subject. As far as this, it's basically it's a mind control. It's RF based mind control. So what they're doing is using something that's called EEG heterodyning and EEG cloning, and ultimately, and this is the craziest part, it's EEG monitoring, which allows for something that's called remote neural monitoring, which sounds absolutely crazy and doesn't really, anytime you say this to people, they'll think you're absolutely insane. But I'm at the point now where, I don't care. So
I love
remote
it.
neural
I love it.
monitoring.
Yeah.
I know. Even saying it right now, I feel like an idiot, but this is exactly what it is. Remote neural monitoring is basically where they can remotely, through some means, which I don't know exactly because it's classified, take your EEG signals and convert your vision, your hearing, all your sensory perception from your central nervous system, and put it into real-time data. So they can put your vision, everything that you're seeing, onto a monitor and watch what you're looking at. And this is how I know. So later on in my targeting, because I don't want to get bogged down in all these little stories, I want to get to the real meat and potatoes here. Later on in my targeting, I started getting active V2K. Literally people talking into my head like it felt like a cell phone conversation. People coming through crystal clear talking to me. They were using voice changers. It sounded like two different individuals, and they would cycle through different voice changers, just messing with me, trying to make me, psychologically assaulting me, saying horrific things, trying to say that the police were after me and, that I was suspected of this and blah, blah, blah. And as I was doing stuff, they would say what I was doing. So like I'd go to get like a glass of milk, and I'd just be walking to go get the milk, and they'd be like, yeah, go get a glass of milk, and I'd be like, what the how do you know I'm getting a glass of milk? And I started like a lot
were
of
you conversing back with them? Like, were you talking back with them?
yeah. At first, I would talk out loud. I would talk out loud back to them, and I was just like, straight up, I was just like, what agency is this? Is this CIA? Like, why is the CIA after me? What did I do? This technology is crazy. Like, you guys can you guys can talk to my head. Like, this is nuts. And then I realized at a certain point that I could just think, I could think something, and they would respond back to it. So they could literally read my thoughts and then respond back. So like full mind reading capability, and they would talk back to me, which again sounds insane, but that's what happened.
Now I have to ask a question. I'm not saying insane,
Please,
but do you believe, and this is something that is coming up as well, do you believe that it was actual people, or do you think that there was some sort of spiritual demonic influence on this?
No, they're definitely people. I think it's people, and ultimately underneath all of this, which it gets even more confusing because you're already dealing with like classified, advanced technology. That beyond that, these people are like they're deeply satanic. They're like they're absolutely sadistic, and they're doing. I mean, I talked to some TIs that are 80 years old that have been tortured for 20 years with this technology. I mean, there's something going on where they're like harvesting people's negative spiritual energy. There has to be a spiritual, there's a spiritual aspect to this. And I think that these people are ultimately controlled by people that are other people that are probably controlled directly by demons. I mean, basically, yeah.
So it's not demonic voices in your head, but there is a spiritual aspect. There is a spiritual battle that is occurring. Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So please keep going.
Yeah. So I mean, I started researching because that's what I do. So I started researching like how is this technology possible? And I found, I started looking up there was something called the DARPA ElectRx program. There's another thing called the the Berkeley dust mote chip, and several other neural implants that allowed for basically the collection remotely, a very, very, very tiny, like almost microscopic chip that can be put just on along any part of like the vagus nerve that can basically send and transmit signals from the brain, and to read this stuff. And so then I kind of realized, like, okay, so I was probably implanted at some point, and so that must be what's going on. And that was my initial understanding of this technology and what's happening, because it was just insane. One day I was going to light a cigarette. I mean, the V2K is attacking me. I go to light a cigarette, and I'm distracted, so I held the lighter for too long. And when I rested the lighter on my stomach, it burned my stomach a little bit because I had my shirt off and burned my stomach. And before I could even react to burning myself, my V2K in my head goes, like makes like a screaming noise. Like the guy that's been talking to me this whole time, he screams when I burn myself. And so like immediately I'm like, you guys can feel what I'm feeling. I'm like, you guys can share sensation? And then sure enough, I did research on it. And what does the Neuralink promise? It is sensory, sharing of sensory experiences. Basically, signals from your nervous system you can share with other people. And, they talk about it. Neuralink is like, oh, it's like a new way of like, we can share each other's sensations. And they talk about all hippy dippy, like, which would, if used for good, would be a great thing. I mean, that'd be an amazing thing, but these people are not using this for good. And for my research now, I'm realizing that Neuralink is basically like a red herring, that like they're showing technology that's like 25, 30 years old and being like, oh, it's just in development now. We're testing on like 2 or 3 people. But in reality, they're way far past that. DARPA is 30, 40 years past that. And DARPA now is either using, the Neuralink's insane. It's like, this big thing they implant in your head with like tendrils that go into your, what is it, your motor cortex or whatever. No, now they can have a very, very small chip that just rests on a nerve, and collects all those signals, and then it runs off of piezoelectricity. So your basically sound powers it, so it doesn't die or run out of batteries or anything like that. It uses piezoelectric charge, which converts ultrasound into mechanical energy, which then powers the chip. And that's what they use. That's standard for medical implants. And then beyond that now, DARPA is using, I think it's called the N3 program, where they're using, nanoparticles. So you're talking about them using basically magnetic nanoparticles, and graphene oxide nanostructures that can basically act as an implant without having anybody have to inject you with anything or do any surgical, procedure. And that's the state of it now, I think.
I heard about those graphene particles, and that's what I was thinking about when you were talking about this, like this chip of something. I'm like, how can they get that into you? And I'm like, well, it could be through some graphene particles. Like, they're spraying into the air. They're literally spraying these into the air. And we're breathing, and you're ingesting them in. It could be on our food or something like that. You ingest it, and then it finds its way. It crosses the, not the blood-brain barrier, but it crosses through your and digestive into your.
Yeah, you're right. It does. It does go through the so, to get into, and it's speculative, but not. It's a combination. So there, and that's what I always thought people that had V2K or these gang stalking phenomena, I thought these people were mentally ill. I always thought that they were insane. And when, I believe in so many different conspiracy theories and research them. But when I saw people talking about like, oh, the government's talking in my head and they're trying to get me to attack the mailman or whatever, I was like, oh, this poor guy needs lithium or something. But, then it happened to me, and I was like, oh my God. Like, so I reevaluated a lot of stuff, and chemtrails make perfect sense now. Chemtrails, that's what they're doing. This is a reactive substance. It's not a straight up poison that they're spraying because I was like, why would they just spray the place where they live with poison and poison themselves? It doesn't make any sense. Like the elite, they live here too. But if the second part of the equation is using some type of electromagnetic frequency or radio frequency, whatever, to interact with it, then it makes perfect sense. And when you start to understand that Bluetooth and Wi-Fi actually opens up or damages the blood-brain barrier, then it makes even more sense. So So if you're eating this stuff and breathing it in, because when you breathe it in, what happens is it gathers on your pharynx and then it turns into mucus and you swallow it. So it all goes into your digestive tract. It all ends up there and then it goes into the bloodstream. And then your blood-brain barrier is being opened up temporarily or damaged to be more porous with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Then that stuff just gets right up in your brain and acts as basically an implant. So that makes a lot of sense to me, especially when I started. When they really started going ham on me. I mean, they had like random people walking up to me saying insane things to me and acting aggressive. Like my V2K would say something and somebody else would come up and say the same thing to me, like crazy stuff that no one would ever believe. But that's exactly what happened. And I started to realize that it's like my handlers, the one or two people that were watching me all the time and talking at me, it's like they had like this user interface where they could just plug into somebody around me and make them act strangely or aggressively for no reason. And it was just like it was, and I mean, at that point when it first started happening, I thought it was implants, and I was like, what? They're going around injecting all these different people with like neural implants? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It leaves evidence. And one thing I realized with all of this is these people don't really leave evidence. Like, there was like this spyware, malware. It's really nothing. And then like the active surveillance stuff. It's all like little things that build up over time that just freak you out. They don't leave any evidence. So why would there be? They're not going to leave implants. So yeah, I think that's kind of the state of the technology now. But yeah, I get ahead of myself when I start talking about this stuff.
No problem. So it makes it so much more interesting, and it makes a lot more sense when you're saying, that they could program these people nearby. And when we're talking about chemtrails and having access, through the nanoparticles, or graphene oxide, sorry, it's, well, same thing, but it's not like many TIs think everybody's out to get them. But I think you're onto it when it's like, no, it's only a few, but
it's a manipulation.
That's exactly. They're able to affect the environment around you. So it seems like the world is against you when in fact it's not. In fact, they are being manipulated just as much as you are.
Yes. Yeah. And I talked on Blue in the Face, because I do the TI conference calls and I talk to all these people and half of them have like nearly lost their mind. They think that literally everybody's against them. And I try to tell them like, no, like, you can just have like one or two handlers that just has to make your mother come over and say some crazy thing to you, or your coworker come up and say something that sounds like something about your personal life, and now you think that like these people are in on it, and then on top of that, they're being manipulated. The target themselves are being so. Dr. John Hall did a great job like explaining to me, and in his interviews and his book as well, if you read it. So he talks about EEG, heterodyning, and cloning. And this is something that I experienced a lot, especially when they were hitting me like early on. I think that they were in a stage where they thought that they could basically just make me go nuts and leave my wife and just like go and be some like homeless lunatic or something. So they were really kind of like showing their hand a lot. And they would, they could basically create an emotional state. Just like a playback, like they're playing a recording. And this was after months. This was after about 5 months of being targeted. And I think that they sit around and they basically they record different EEG signals. They get you into different emotional states, and then they can play them back. And that's called EEG cloning. And then the other thing they can do is called EEG heterodyning, where basically by playing by sending two different frequencies into your head, it kind of creates a new frequency, and kind of can create its own emotional state. You can elicit emotional states with frequencies, but using this EEG cloning, you can basically play back somebody's own EEG signals into their head to emulate whether it's extreme fear, extreme excitement, even like revelatory feelings. Like I would get these feelings like I figured something out, it must be this, it must be that, and it would be like this, like of course kind of feeling, and it was just completely manufactured. And yeah, and they would at certain points, my V2K would be like, I mean, I would be like, in like like a horrific state of like terror, and just like extreme nervousness. And my V2K would be like, "Hey, watch this, man!" And it was like they hit a button, and all of a sudden it was just like boom. It was like I felt totally normal. I felt totally calm, and I would just and at that point I was still talking to them like, like I was in a weird state. Like I think that, I don't know if it was like, this technology or if they were like actually like drugging me, but like I was talking to them like, that's amazing. Like this technology is so amazing. Like you guys can literally like cause any emotional response ever. Like you can just take somebody that's like having a complete breakdown and just hit a button and they just feel totally fine. Like this is crazy. Like I can't believe this is real. Um, but then as time went by, I realized that these people are completely sadistic and they were just kind of getting off on showing off their power. And feeling like they were clowning me, and that I was still talking to them nicely, even though they were destroying my life and doing horrific things to my wife, and yeah, just destroying my life and damaging our brains, which is a big part of this. Which I
So you have mentioned your wife now a couple of times that they're destroying her life too. Now, did she start becoming a TI as well, or did they start targeting her, or was it through you? How did that play
so
out?
when this first started happening, my wife saw all the hacking and all that stuff, and she was like, "Yeah, there's something going on." She saw what happened with my computer, and then all of a sudden and we had been together for 5 years, never really argued, we got along really well, and all of a sudden she would just argue with me every single day. It was like every single day she would like become extremely irate, and start arguing with like kind of normal things that I would say. And then like out of nowhere just started saying like, I'm going to divorce you. I'm going to divorce you. And like say like really extreme things like that, which we had never been anywhere near saying anything like that to each other. And I was just saying things like, I'm worried about my computer getting hacked. Like, what are these people doing? Like, why are these people following me and watching me? Like, I'm worried about our safety. And she would just go crazy and start arguing with me. And that progressed over time to, we had to move several times. And during that time, they tried, basically setting up scenarios to get me, to try to section me, to get some type of mental health diagnosis on me. One of the times, two police showed up and, basically just for, I don't want to get too caught up in a lot of these stories, but I thought I'd been hearing, whether it's V2K or actually happening. We had a basement at the apartment we moved to after Newton. And the lock to the back door to the outside was broken to the basement, which is right below our first floor apartment. And I started hearing, walking around at night down there. And then it progressed to the point where it sounded like people were like punching, like they're like, hitting the floor below me, where I'm running around thinking people are trying to break into the house. So I contacted the property manager, and I told him, I think people are going down there. Is there something? Can you just like secure the back door? Put a new lock on it because the door was busted. And he goes, "Oh, I'll put a camera down there." And I was like, "Wow, all right. I didn't think you'd do all that, but sure." And like 2 days later, I come home from work, and I hear like it clear as a bell. It sounds like somebody's walking around in my apartment, and things are moving around my apartment. And I knew my wife wasn't there; she was at work. So I run into the apartment. And and I hear like the others. I went to the back door of the apartment, and the other side was the front door that leads to a hall, which leads to the basement. And I heard that door close as I was coming in. So I'm like, oh, they ran out the front door. So I go running out to the front door, and then I hear the basement door close. And so I run over to the basement door, and I run down there, and I run down to the basement. I look around, and there's nobody there. So I go, all right. And I walk back upstairs and I look over and police are walking down the driveway. And I'm like, all right, so somebody must have saw somebody break into my apartment and they called the cops. So I go to my back door and I was like, hey, like somebody call you? Did they see somebody break into my apartment? And they were like, no, we don't know what you're talking about. Are you Ben Conine? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, all right, yeah, can we come in? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. Yeah. And at that point I'm just confused because I'm like, I was like, yeah, I think I heard somebody was in my apartment when I came home, and it sounded like they ran down through the basement and ran out of here. And right away, the cop is just like, there's nobody in the basement. And I was like, all right. And one of them was like super irate, like worked up, like the guy's face is all red. And the other guy was like, his eyes are bulging out of his head, the other cop, and he's looking all around my apartment, and he's looking all nervous, and he keeps looking down at my like pants, like at my pockets, and looking back at me and looking at my pockets. And I'm like, what's going on? And he goes like, oh, the property manager called us. He said he saw you on camera run down to the basement. And I was like, oh, he was watching like live as I ran down to the basement. And they were like, yeah. And he said you didn't look like yourself, so he called in a wellness check on you. He's worried about you. And I was like, I don't even think I've ever seen this guy before. And like, why didn't he call me? Like, we talked on the phone the other day. And he goes, and the cop is just, and it was just so weird. Like the cop with his eyes bulging out, he started looking around my apartment, and I have like Stanley Kubrick posters on my wall. I love Stanley Kubrick. So I have like a Clockwork Orange and, Dr. Strangelove poster. And he looks at him and he goes, oh, you like Stanley Kubrick? And I go, yeah. And he's like, yeah, he's kind of a weird guy, huh? And I was like, yeah, I guess so, man. I don't know. I like his movies. And it was just weird. It was a weird thing to say. And then the other cop was like, all right, yeah, it was weird. It was like really bizarre. And like more of that high strangeness, like weird stuff. And he keeps looking at my pockets. And the other cop is like getting closer and closer to me. And he's like, yeah, we're going to call it a wellness check, to make sure you're okay. And I was like, for walking down to a basement? Like, why do you think that that's like a sign of mental illness? And the cop goes like, well, we're worried about your safety, so they're going to evaluate you when they get here. And I go, all right, man. Yeah, that's fine. And they call, so an ambulance and 5 more cruisers show up for somebody to walk down a basement. I have like cops everywhere, and they show up and they just say, get on the gurney. You're going to the hospital. And I was like, I didn't get evaluated. He didn't even ask me any questions. And the other cop, like the one that looks like irate, he gets in like a football tackle pose, and he's like, "We're gonna have a problem." He's like getting ready to restrain me, and I go, "No, man, no." And I get on the gurney. They take me to the hospital. They take me to
So they are in essence medically kidnapping you.
Yeah. And I at that point I was 38 years old. I never had a history, no mental illness at all, no criminal record, and I was just like. I was like horrified because I was like, oh, this is what these people are doing. Like they want to put me in like a loony bin, and I'm horrified because it's like the Twilight Zone, it's like a horror movie. And so they drive me all the way from Waltham to Cambridge. So they skipped like 2 different hospitals I could go to, and they brought me like basically like into Boston to this like hospital to have me evaluated. And when I get there, the intake nurse is like, why did they bring you all the way here from Waltham? Like there's a hospital right next to your house that they could have brought you to. And I was like, I don't know. This has never happened to me before. I'm horrified. Like what's happening? And then the EMT walks in and goes, the police just, he changed his police report and said that Ben hit himself when he ran down in the basement. And I was like, no, I didn't. I was like, I didn't. Why would I hit myself? And the nurse and EMT kind of look at each other and they're shaking their heads. They know something's wrong. And thankfully, the intake nurse, she went and talked to a couple different people there, and just let them know, like, yeah, I think that this cop is trying to railroad this guy. Like he seems totally normal, and why would he change the police report at the last minute? Because that's like one of the rules for sectioning people in Massachusetts. If you're a danger to yourself or others, or you hurt yourself, then you can automatically be basically put into a mental ward. And yeah, I still had to wait there for 4 hours. With like a guard watching me, and be questioned, and then they finally let me go. But that was just the first attempt. It happened 2 more times, and on the 3rd time, they actually they just railroaded me and put me into a mental ward and kept me there for 2 weeks with no evaluation. They just kept me there. So this is something that they were obviously just trying to put some type of mental health, record on me to make me look to discredit me for this whole thing.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. You know what's interesting? So this is like, your story is extremely, I know it's terrifying, horrific, but intriguing as well. Because you start to think about it and you start to think about, I don't know. This is a touchy subject, but like mass shooters or people who have done
Oh
any
yeah,
horrific crimes, you start to think, well, is this what's happening? Are they being
I
controlled?
think
Are
so.
they, yeah. And then also, if they're able to stick this label of, aha, he had some mental illness issues in the past. Okay, now we can, now we can push him further. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, like I felt, I mean, the whole time with my V2K and everything they were doing, they kept trying to get me to. I mean, they were trying to get me to go and like break into my neighbor's house. They were saying like, we're just upstairs. They kept saying we're upstairs. We're in the upstairs neighbor's house. We're right up here. You could just come up here and stop us anytime you want. Like you're being, you're weak. Blah blah blah. So they were like trying to get me to either break the law in some way or to confront people, and to and they did this a lot. They started saying that they first started by saying that they were black, and that it was black gangsters, that it was black gang members that were doing this, and they would use voice changers of black people. The voice changers they can use, by the way, are like top notch. It's like AI voice changers. They could change how they sounded entirely to different people. And it took me a while to figure out that these are basically the same, maximum three people that are switching between. They must have switched between at least a dozen different voices that sounded exactly, sound like an actual person. It didn't sound like they would use the actual like low pitched like ransom voice changer a lot, where it's like, oh, we got you, that kind of stuff. But they would actually use voices of different people, teenagers, different black people, um, women, men, just switch between all sorts of different voices. But they tried the racial angle for a while, and they tried to because where I was living after like the third time I had to move, there was like a fair amount of African Americans that lived around me, and they tried to make it sound like that those are the people that were responsible, and they started using the voice changers, with like black voices. And they tried that for a while, and I wasn't. I didn't believe it. I was like, I think you guys are like FBI or something. Yeah, I'm not going to go. I mean, literally, like a guy, like some random black dude just walking by to take out his trash. Some guy that lived, in one of the other apartments, and they tried. They were like, "Oh, here we come, man!" And like I see this guy just going taking out the trash. I'm like, that guy's just taking out the trash. Like, like what? But they were trying to, you know, and being very racial about it, saying demeaning things about me, like calling me white boy, and we're sexually assaulting your wife. Black guys are sexually assaulting your wife, and here we are, we're right here. Come and do something about it. They're trying to get like trying to work off tribalism, trying to work off of like a racial angle, trying to get me to do something, and then they switched over to saying that they were Jewish and that they were uh, Jewish supremacists and they hate white people, and that their uncle is in Mossad and all sorts of like anything they could do. But they worked a lot along like these like weird racial angles to try to get me to do like some type of like domestic terrorism or assault somebody just because of their race, basically. And they tried that angle for a while. They tried that angle. They tried for probably like I want to say it's like March. No, that was April to. It was probably like 3 or 4 months. They tried doing that, and when I just basically just didn't do anything, it was just like, yeah, I'm not going to go and attack some random Jewish dude or some random black guy. Um, they gave up on that, and then just switched over to straight up psychological 24/7 V2K torture. Just driving me absolutely nuts. Just keeping me up all night long, saying the worst possible things while using, at the time I didn't know, I thought it was my own emotion, but they were using this EEG heterodyning cloning technology to just create like the most extreme negative emotional reactions that you could think of, like extreme sorrow, extreme sadness, like terror, like pure, like unadulterated fear. Saying that they were, gonna, take my wife and kidnap her. And anytime my wife would go off to work, like, oh, we're raping her, we're doing horrible things to her right now. What are you gonna do? Just like, which by itself, I would normally been like, yeah, no, she's fine, like she's okay. But like with using this technology, it was like this extreme brutal assault that words can't really do it justice. It was absolutely it was like it was mind bending torture. And talking to a lot of the TIs now that I talk to, I just feel for them, because like it just, I don't think most people could really put up with it, and I think a lot of them snap, because when I try to talk to a lot of these people. I mean, you can't even get through to them. You can't talk any sense into them. When you try to talk about these psychological tactics that are used, you try to talk. I mean, I'm like a research guy. I'm very analytical. So I'm like, listen, they're using elements from the Kubark manual. This is like a CIA manual from the 1970s. Look, it's like point for point, the sexual humiliation, which is a big part of it. That's disturbing. The sleep deprivation, malnutrition. This is what they're doing. Try to think of it this way. And they're just like, no, like the mailman just sneaking in here and he's injecting me with toxins and whatever. And I'm just like, all right, Jesus, I can't get through to you. But that this is another angle of it too. That's really creepy and weird. But for me, I've learned to kind of laugh at it. I've had to like really like have some weird gallows humor about this stuff. But so as what I read in the Kubark manual, which was my first kind of breakthrough of understanding what they were doing to me, was a sexual humiliation angle of it. And one thing they will do is they will have, as your interrogator, they'll have somebody that's of the opposite sexual orientation as you. So for me, I'm a straight guy. And they're, I mean, the people that are doing this, that were talking to me, were homosexual. I mean, there's just no two ways around it. And they would, I mean, you're going to the bathroom, you're showering, and they're talking to you and they're saying stuff. You go down to wash yourself and they're commenting on your penis, or they're talking about all this stuff. Not going to get into. You can imagine how like absolutely horrific these people can go to. I mean, you're talking about like sadistic trolls that can look at you and I mean, they're watching everything through your eyes as you're trying to live your life. So like I'm sitting there going to poop, and they're still talking to me, and they're talking about how I wipe my butt. Like it's insane. Like it's like it would just not stop. It was like an all out assault, and but that's an element of the interrogation and psychological torture. Is basically it's a sexual humiliation, and they call it inversion of the self. So if you're like a straight guy and somebody is just constantly hitting you with like homosexual comments all the time, and undermining you, that it's supposed to basically leave you in kind of more of a free fall and psychologically vulnerable. But for me, like I just I grew up in New England. I don't really care, and I'm in Massachusetts, so it's like weird. Like Massachusetts is very like we're very pro gay here. There's gay people everywhere. I've been hit up by gay guys plenty of times. I find it flattering. I don't really care. But and also I grew up where we would all call each other, we'd all call each other gay all the time. We're very like it's kind of a weird blend of things. Like we were very homophobic growing up, but then we're okay with gay people at the same time. It's a weird it's a weird attitude. But so for me, like it didn't really work on me too much, but it was a constant assault, and they would use women's voices as like a women's voice changer stuff to be like, oh, try to belittle my genitals and do like say all this stuff. And over time, I just realized that they were gay, and I just kept saying like, yeah, you're a gay dude. Like I know you're not a woman. I know you're not this. And now they, the V2K has stopped for me entirely. But before it stopped, they had basically admitted that they were gay men and they were torturing me and they were going to do horrific things to my wife. And and my son. But you know, but yeah, that's another weird angle. But I feel like I'm off on a really strange tangent now. I don't want to.
Okay, no, that's all right. That's all right. So like, what other? I know that you had mentioned something like that. You went into a hotel. I remember watching one of your interviews. And You went into a hotel, and they knew that they had already emailed you or something like that, saying "Welcome to this hotel" or something like that.
Yeah. I freaked out. I started feeling that somebody's going to come into the apartment and hurt my wife or myself. So, I was like, let's just at least get like some good night's sleep for like 2 nights at a motel. We went to this motel the first night we were there, my wife looks at her email and says like, oh, somebody named Chris signed up because we were at a Red Roof Inn. And all of a sudden, like, it was like, oh, you're a Red Roof Inn rewards member. And she didn't sign up for it. And it just came in and said, like, hey, Chris, like, welcome to Red Roof, rewards or whatever their program is. And you're going to be staying here. Okay, here's your bonus points and here's amenities. And my wife is just like, what is this? Like, why is this in my email? And yeah, again, it's that active surveillance thing where they want to let you know, we know where you are. It's very overt to try to freak you out. And then the next night we were there, we were sitting there in the motel room getting ready to go to bed, and somebody just pounds on the door like the police, just bump, 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 bump. And we both jump up. I run over to the peephole. I look out the peephole, and a guy who's, anywhere between, 20 to 35 years old, because I could only see the back of him, was sprinting off to an SUV, jumped in the SUV, and they peeled off, and drove off, because it's one of those motels where you're right next to the parking lot there, every door, And yeah, just intimidation tactics, active surveillance tactics to just freak you out and leave no evidence, because there's no cameras there. When we went and talked to the front desk about this Chris guy registering under her email, they were just like, oh, I don't know what that is. There's nothing we can do about that. It's all these little things that, you say one of these things and it's like, all right, well, so what? But when it's like 100 things that happen over a period of a year, over and over and over again, it takes a like real emotional toll, and it's like a campaign of it's a terroristic campaign, basically, is what they're doing. Yeah,
exactly. And so you said that this started about 2 years ago. So we're talking like 2024 or 2023 and around there.
It was October of 2023.
Okay,
yeah.
That's interesting. That is interesting. And then it just accumulated and it just built up. But it seems like you were sane enough, even though they're trying to make you feel insane, you were sane enough to actually, and a good sense of humor, which is funny, because I think that's what maybe really saved you on this, is having this good sense of humor, and being good sport about it,
I mean, yeah, I have an extreme sense of humor, and you know what they did is when I was in Stoughton at that apartment, and that was where they actively started talking to me like full on V2K, and before then, the transit. So this is a kind of an important thing. So they were hitting me still overtly, even when I moved to Stoughton, where like I didn't know where the voices are coming from, and I thought it was maybe speakers. I thought that they were using directional speakers and stuff like that, because I didn't know what was going on. Like it's just a bizarre thing. Like all of a sudden you hear voices in your head. And I was driving my car, and I would start hearing people that were driving by me that sounded like they were yelling out their window at me as they drove by my car, and it sounded like they were making it sound like the people were saying, "Shut up, shut up." They was like, say that as like it was two cars like approaching each other, going 30 miles per hour, and I was like. At first I was like, what I was like, is it like a cult? It's like there's like a cult. There's like a whole bunch of people in this town that are involved in this. What is going on? But then one of the times they did it, I heard the shut up, and I look up at the car and their window was rolled up. So their driver's side window was rolled up, but they were making it sound like that person was saying shut up to me. And I realized right away, like, it's in my head. This is misdirection. This is the sound is actually coming from in my head. And I had like at that point I nearly had a breakdown, because I immediately thought like, that there must be like, I'm being experimented on, or like this is like I've literally like I must have a chip in my head, And that means I'm basically a human experimentation subject. I'm going to die. And I freaked out. And again, I think that this might have been the EEG cloning where they wanted me to freak out and were hitting me with these extreme feelings. And I ripped my dashboard, visor off the thing, and I threw it out the window. And I was like, fuck. It was just like Matt, just screaming, like going nuts in my car. I punched my my shifter, and I shattered my shifter with my fist. And, like it was like damaging my car. Like I went nuts. But it was in that moment that like I realized like I was that the sound was coming from it was being beamed into my head, and it wasn't coming from any directional speaker. And they were being very careful and tricky about it. And it was only because I just looked up, because I've got a fast reaction time, and I looked up and I saw that window closed, and I saw there's no way that person just yelled that at me. That's the only way that I figured it out. Yeah, and that was like a big moment for me where I realized that. And after that, they started. That was shortly before they just started full on just the synthetic telepathy, talking back and forth with me, and torturing me. But and shortly after that, when I was in Stoughton, my wife started really getting just changing, like changing her behavior. She had stopped being so argumentative, but now she seemed very subdued and very like, it was like she was like her eyes were half lidded all the time. It looked like she was almost sedated. And then one day, like I came home, and she was just vacuuming. She was vacuuming the whole apartment, and she just kept vacuuming and vacuuming, and she was like doing it really crazy. Like she was slamming the vacuum cleaner into like furniture, into the wall. And I tried stopping her and being like, "Hey, baby, relax, calm down." And she said, "No, no," and she just kept vacuuming. And she went from one room to another and came back and started doing the living room again. And I was like, "You already vacuumed here. Like, calm down. What's going on with you? What's happening?" And she started getting mad and arguing, and then just like stopped, and then was just in this weird, subdued. It was just like so sad. It was like, she was just like, "What? Like, what is it?" And I was like, what are you doing? Why are you vacuuming the house like this over and over again? Are you okay? And her eyes were just like half closed, and she was like, "I'm fine, I'm okay." And I got so freaked out. I was just like, "Can we go to the hospital? Can we get you checked out at the hospital real quick, just to make sure you're okay? Make sure there's no neurological problems or something?" She goes, "No, no, no." And I just went, and I over and over again, I kept trying to get her to go, and she would not go. And my V2K in my head was just like, they were just telling me like, we got control of her. Like, we can control her. Like, we're using, they were calling it V2K hypnosis. That's what they kept saying. It was V2K hypnosis. And, which I think is it's an oversimplification that's meant to misdirect what they're actually doing. But, they're like, yeah, it's a V2K hypnosis. We can control her. And we're doing horrific things when you're not around with her, is what they kept saying. And at that point, I freaked out. I was like, I gotta get my wife to a hospital. And I set off the fire alarm. I just set off the fire alarm. I just held up a lighter to the fire alarm, set it off. And I was like, "Baby, all right, come on, it's fire alarm. We got to go out." And she doesn't even understand what that is. She just goes, "What?" I go, "It's a fire alarm. The whole building's going off for the fire alarm. We got to go out." And she was like, and she just went to like go to sit down on the couch. And I was like, "No, you got to put on your slippers. We got to go." And she goes, "Okay." And I had to like grab her by the hand, like she's a kid, and like bring her over to her slippers. She puts her slippers on, and she walks outside, the parking lot with me. And once we're outside, I go, "All right, well, it's going to take a while for the fire department to get her, probably, so why don't we jump in the car here, and we can go. Let's go down to 7-Eleven and get like an ice cream or something." And she goes, "Oh, okay, all right." And she gets into the car, and she's just out of it. Like she's just, it's like somebody like sedated her with like Thorazine or something. And so I don't, and at this point, I don't even know what to do. I'm thinking like, do I just go to 7-Eleven and call an ambulance? And I ended up driving. I drove to 7-Eleven with her, and I got her a snack, and And she's not even like really questioning at that point. Like before, she would not leave the apartment. Like that was one thing. Like once we were in Stoughton, it was like she would not leave the apartment for anything. We used to go for walks. We'd go out bowling or whatever. Once we were there, she was like, "No, I don't want to go anywhere. I want to stay right here." And so I just I called an ambulance, and the ambulance shows up, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm worried that she like ingested some chemicals or something accidentally. I don't know what's going on with her, but neurologically, it seems like there's a problem." And right away they're like, all right, yeah, we'll bring her. Like they look at her and they go, yeah, we'll bring her somewhere. So we go into the ambulance, and the ambulance, the EMT is like, all right, well, there's only one hospital we can go to. It's Beth Israel Lahey, and I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever. And we go down there, and it's like 20 minutes away, and we go on the highway, like 20 minutes away on the highway. So like, like I looked it up later, and it's like maybe some ambulances are contracted to certain hospitals, but right away it's like the same thing all over again.
Yeah, they're taking you away to a specific hospital. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And that this is a big part of it too. Hospitals are involved with this. And so we get to the hospital, they admit her, and I go in with her, and they go, no, you can't go with her. And I go, oh no, she's English as a second language. I was like, she's English as second language. She likes me to go to like a doctor's appointments with her, so she doesn't, so she can explain things, and they go, no, absolutely not. You stay in the waiting room out here. And she's like a zombie at this point, and they wheel her in somewhere. They wheel her into the emergency room area, and I'm walking around trying to figure out a way to get in there. I tried just like walking in there, and they posted this huge guard at the door. He comes over and stands there and stares at me, and they go, "Sir, you're not coming in here." And I go, "All right." Well, and I walk over to the waiting room, and I'm like, I'm having chest pains. And I go, I want to be admitted. I'm having chest pains, and they admitted me. And I go in there, and I go walk around there for a minute. I go immediately to her where she is, and she's just sitting in there, and they just let me go and sit down next to her. They didn't say anything. Nobody said anything to me. They were just like, all right. And they send over this doctor, and the doctor, as soon as he starts talking to her, he goes, okay, how you feeling today? And she's like, oh, okay, I'm feeling good. I'm all right. And he's like, you been having problems? And she goes, I've been waking up dizzy every morning. Every morning I wake up and I'm really dizzy. And like my heart just like sunk when she said it, because I was feeling the same thing, and she had never said that. And I'd been experiencing the same thing in that apartment. And so he goes, oh, okay, all right, well, yeah, we'll get you checked out. And I said to him, I was like, yeah, could we get like maybe like a blood panel done to make sure that she didn't ingest anything or was like, I don't know if she like put some cleaning fluid in, when she was cleaning stuff and actually accidentally drank it. Like I was trying to come up with anything, but I wanted a blood panel to see if she had been poisoned. And immediately the doctor just turns to her and goes, has your husband been acting strange lately? And she goes, what? Has your husband been acting strange lately? Do you think like maybe there's something mentally wrong with him? And she's like, and she goes, no, what? And I get pissed off immediately. And I'm like, what are you doing? Are you trying to section me right now? Why are you trying to section me for asking for a blood panel for my wife? And he just like kind of stonewalls me and asks her again, do you think that your husband has something maybe wrong with him mentally? Does he have a mental health history? And she said again, she just says no. And I'm pissed off at this point, and I'm like, how dare you, man? I'm asking for a blood panel for my wife. Like, why are you trying to section me right now? What's happening? And he just walks off, and they order a CAT scan for her. And when she goes to get the CAT scan, they start wheeling her out, and I go with her again, and they say, no, you can't go with her when she goes and gets the CAT scan. And I'm terrified at this point. And by the way, when I'm waiting in the hospital, I mean, in this emergency room, they're wheeling people in that are talking to themselves. They're wheeling people in on stretchers, 2 different people. One of them's going like, shut up, shut up, shut up. And he's waving his hands around, and he's like, quiet, quiet. He's saying stuff like that. Another guy is like talking. He's talking to Kamala Harris. Like another guy's in a stretcher, and he's saying like "F you, Kamala." F you. And he's talking. I mean, in his head, he's like talking to Kamala Harris in his head. So I'm seeing two different people in this place that are experiencing V2K, and they're out of it completely. And they got him stretchers there, and so I'm terrified at this point. And I'm like, oh my god, like I'm worried that my wife is being taken off by herself, and I'm just kissing her, and I'm just like, it's okay, baby, like they're gonna take you off for a CAT scan, and they were just like, yeah, you can wait here, you can wait here, and they had posted a guard, by the way, to sit there next to us, after the doctor had walked off, like this huge guard, just he was like this like big like. Everybody there looked like they're former military, and I talked to one of them later, and he was former military. The one guy I talked to, he said he was a former Marine. And this big guy that was guarding us, when I was sitting there with my wife, like I was talking to my wife like just like openly, and I was like they're experimenting on us, and I was saying it to my wife. I was like they're experimenting on us, baby, and she didn't understand a fucking word I was saying. She didn't understand what I was saying, and when I said it to her, the guard that was there watching me starts crying. The guy takes his glasses off. He's this big bodybuilder dude. He takes his glasses off and he wipes tears. And a nurse comes over and hugs him and starts comforting him. And he puts the glasses back on, and then I'm looking around like even more freaked out. So when they take her off for a CAT scan, I just say like I said to her like, I'm sorry, baby. Like I'm trying to take care of you. And I just hope you're okay. And I go to walk away, and I was just gonna go walk outside. I was I didn't know what I was doing at that point. Like I had my idea that I was gonna leave, which I don't know why. But I went to go walk outside, and three guards step in front of me. And the guard says the doctors put a hold on you. And I went, what? And they go, yeah, the doctors put a hold on you. You're not going anywhere. You're staying right here. And I go, what does a hold mean? I was like, what does that even mean? And they go, all right, come on with us. And they brought me in for a mental evaluation. They took all my clothes. They put me into this like ridiculous like a Johnny with like purple pants, and put me in like a room that was just like it was just a box that was like 8 foot by 8 foot. What's it called? It's like corrugated metal, like walls, and like a plexiglass. Yeah, and a plexiglass window with a guard behind it staring at me. And all that was in there is one bed in the middle, one gurney, and I just laid there in the gurney, and they're like, "You're not going anywhere. You're staying right here." And I was horrified. And the guard that was there, they all looked like they were like hardened, like weird security, like military. And and I sat there for an hour, and at this point, I started to get emotional. I'm horrified for my wife. I think that they're going to section me, and now my wife is like, can't even take care of herself, and God knows what's going to happen to her. And I'm just sitting there, and and this guy just staring at me through a plexiglass window, just watching me, like I'm on suicide watch or something. And I go, why am I in here? And they said, oh, it sounded like you threatened your wife when you were going to leave. And I said, what? And he said, yeah, you said that you were going to kill her. And I was like, I brought her here for treatment. Why would I say I'm going to kill my wife? Do you have like a recording or anything? Like, what are you talking about? And they went, well, yeah, this is for her protection. So I sit there for 3 hours, just sitting in a cell. And finally, they send over this like a nurse with like a screen with like somebody, some lady's face on it, some Zoom meeting, have you ever been suicidal, blah, blah, blah. And you ever hear voices, blah, blah, blah. And I go through all that. And they go, all right, yeah, we're going to go, go over this and analyze it. And then we'll see if we can let you go. And they leave. And it was like instantaneously after they wheeled that thing out, I go to sit on the gurney and I just get knocked unconscious. Like I sit down the gurney and I just fall back and fall asleep. And I woke up. I'm guesstimating that it was like another 3 hours later. I wake up and a nurse is in there going, "Wake up, wake up! It's time for you to go." And I'm like, "What? What?" I was like, "What happened? Like I can go?" And she goes, "Yeah, but you have to sign this paper um, that you're not." It was like that you're not allowed to see your wife for 2 days because you threatened her life, and it's company policy. And I go, "Yeah, sure, yeah, yeah." I just signed the paper. I'm completely disoriented, like completely disoriented. I felt completely out of it. I get up and I walk, I walk out, and they say, "We're going to order an Uber for you to go home." Which I don't know any hospital. I've never, I don't go to a lot of hospitals anyway. But anybody else out there, like, is that weird? That's kind of weird. And as I'm walking out, there's like multiple doctors that are just staring at me as I was walking out, and they drive me home. And like I just went straight home to see my wife. I just ignored that thing I had to sign. And when I came home, she was like in a weird, like just like happy but out of it state. It was like she was on it was like she was on Xanax or something. And she was just like, "Hi baby, how you doing?" And just not acting like herself. And I was like crying. Like I was literally just crying. I was sobbing, because the whole thing is just, it's like horrific. Um, and yeah, like it just went to bed. And that was the second time they tried to section me. And yeah,
I have a question. So your wife was just released. They just like sent her home as well. How did she get home?
I have
Uber
no
as
idea.
well?
I have no idea. She doesn't remember. She doesn't remember.
This is crazy. Now, like there are some similarities when I was talking with a another TI where he was medically abducted as well. He was put in an induced coma. They said he had COVID. They intubated him, and he's like, "I'm one of the only people who was able to remove this." And then he's like, "I'm trying to leave. They wouldn't let me out. There was security." And he says, "I took like lost and found clothes because I didn't have any clothes." And he like walked out of they actually let him go out the back door of the hospital. They're like, "Here, go out the back door." And then he's like walking down a street trying to find a way home. And he walked into a restaurant. And it's kind of funny you say Uber because he actually ended up befriending this guy who's like, "Let me buy you an Uber." And he sent him home on an Uber, which is just, it's eerie similar. But please
Again,
continue. This is,
yeah, again, very strange, very strange. And that's, but yeah, they yeah, like I just escaped. But like that hospital is a setup. And another thing, creepy as hell. When I was sitting in that cell, they had a cell right next to me. It's like they like off of the emergency room is like a little like mental ward area with like six different like small prison cell type of thing. And the guy next to me was like 50 years old. Um, and I walked by and I saw him when I was coming in. And when I sat down in my cell, I could hear him talking, and he was talking like he was a 5-year-old girl. And he was just saying like, "Hi, how are you? Hi." And the guards are going over talking to him like, "Hey buddy, hey, what are you doing?" And he's like, "I just learned how to count. I can count to 9." And they're like, "Oh, can you? Yeah, count to 9 for me." And they were saying it in like a weird, like mocking kind of a way. Like, it was bizarre, man. Like I really think that some of these hospitals, it's full on where it MK Ultra is still going on, and I think that they're testing out this technology on people, and I mean literally just reprogramming people's brains. Like I know that there are people with mental problems and stuff that talk like this, but like it was creepy, and the way that they were talking to him was utterly disturbing. It was a very like mocking, weird tone. Why is a security guard these like dudes who were just like they were total like they're total assholes, and they're going over him and talking to him like that. It was weird. It was like they were mocking him. Um, yeah, that really stuck with me. Um, but so I just wanted to. I don't want to get caught up too much in all of that. I mean, it's 2 years of many different experiences. I'd wanted to get into my experiences with kind of in the V2K torture side of things when they're really hitting me. Um, so After I dealt with this for a while, I read Robert Duncan's Project Soulcatcher, which is if anybody's experiencing this, you have to read that book. You can find it online for free. He was a CIA and DARPA whistleblower who was later murdered after writing Project Soulcatcher and How to Tame a Demon, where he basically came out and explained these technologies and how they work in kind of a vague way, because Project Soulcatcher Volume 2 was released, but Project Soulcatcher Volume 1 was kept from being released by the government. So he basically had to water it down, to keep, so it could be published. But when I read it, and he explained the concept of being in a hive mind with the handlers, your V2K handlers, it like all clicked into place. And later on, after I read that book, they basically were just like straight up, showing me that that's exactly what's happening. It's like literally it's like literally sharing your brain with somebody else. That's the only way I can explain it. It's like you're linked together and you can feel their thoughts bubbling up into your thoughts. They feel like your thoughts, but they aren't. Um, you know, uh, this could be explained with, the ideas of, the V2K kind of implanted thoughts or the EEG cloning heterodyning. It's hard to say because it's just you're experiencing it. But I mean, that's what it feels like. It feels like you're like literally like in a hive mind with somebody and you're having alien thoughts and feelings just kind of like pop into your head, where when it first starts happening, like it's very confusing. But after a while, you just like know, like, oh yeah, that's a this asshole's thought over here. Um, it's I don't know if you ever heard of anything like that with any of the other TIs that talk about these experiences.
Not so much. I I think you're very unique that you're able to separate it. You found the separation. You're like, I don't know. It's very intriguing that you've done this much work, this much effort into figuring this out and dissecting this. Whereas a lot of people, not a lot of people, it's not like I've talked to many, but they accept it for what it is. They think that everybody, the world is against them. Whereas Kevin, on the other hand, Kevin Orr he has a group called Positive TI on Reddit, and he talks about he's trying to help people as well. But I don't think he's gone into the technical side like you have. He's not so sold on the V2K, but I do believe that there is something that is happening there, and this makes a lot more sense of it as well.
Yeah, no, I see that with a lot of TIs. It seems like 50 or 60% of TIs don't even experience V2K at all, and I think that what they're doing is because there's levels of the V2K. There's the actual audio where they let you know, where it's just like you're having a cell phone call like in your head, and then they can ramp it up where they can actually share. They can share like visual images, especially when your eyes are closed. They can share, their thoughts. But yeah, the different types of V2K. You have your basic V2K where it's like literally just somebody talking into your head that you can't escape. And then you have an imitated inner monologue. It's like they can basically. It feels like it's your thought, but it's somebody else's. And I don't know if that's a hive mind thing or if that's them using the same principles of V2K to just counterfeit your inner monologue. And then there's a directional V2K, which seems to be used the most on TIs. I mean, like I have TIs that tell me they think people are tunneling under their house, or that that there are people that go and hide in their attic at night. And this is like the directional V2K stuff, where I mean it sounds 100% real. Like it's way better than any surround sound you'll ever hear. It just it sounds 100% real. And if you're also hitting somebody's brain with like this technology where they have the ability to do something called neuromodulation, where you can basically slow down people's slow down their actual thinking or speed it up. I've had them do both those things. Um, can cause extreme confusion. Where you really don't know what's going on, like almost delirious. They can basically, and again, how they do it exactly is not for sure. There's definitely hertz frequencies that cause these type of things, that cause confusion, that cause different emotional states. and disrupt thought patterns. But I mean, it seems like they can do a lot more than that. It seems like there's some type of technology where they're able to, I mean, basically make you loop thought patterns, and give you think about the same things over and over again, ruminate on stuff. I noticed one thing they could do is when they were using V2K, they would make me respond to them, where they would say something, and no matter how dumb it was like I had to say something back to them. And they were saying that it was a hypnosis, a V2K hypnosis thing, or subliminal hypnosis. I don't know exactly the mechanism that they do it, but it's creepy because and it's horrifying. They would say something, no matter how dumb or how many times they said it, and like I would just respond back, and sometimes it would make me respond out loud back, even though I knew that they could, hear what I was thinking. And I think that these things are made to make people look more insane and make people look mentally ill. And yeah, I experienced that a ton. I mean, now once I started going public with this, because I just, I had enough. And, I did the Frank Allen show. But once I went on YouTube and I got onto the Richard Sayette show, his Strange Planet podcast, a little bit before then, all the V2K stopped. It all stopped. And now I'm just hit with like extreme tinnitus, that is just like extremely high pitched. It varies in frequency, and I've been waking up, again, dizzy, super dizzy, shaking, trembling, walking like I walk like I'm a baby sometimes when I first wake up. Like it's like these shuffling weird, you know, it feels like you've just been in a car accident or something. I don't know how else to explain it. It feels like you just had a concussion. And then I went in finally, and I got an ENT appointment, and they saw that I had lost significant hearing damage in my left ear, and that they said that the combination of these symptoms. And I have a strange growth in my left ear now, as well. And I'm actually going in tomorrow for an MRI, where they're actually going to do some imaging and see what kind of actual like permanent damage has been done. But yeah, I mean they're just like hitting me, with more kind of Havana syndrome type symptoms. Like I don't know exactly what they're doing, but I mean it feels like I'm being microwaved all the time. Like even now, like my cheeks are all red. I can feel my face is all hot. And this has been going on more and more. Where they just kind of hit me with all sorts of physical symptoms. 2 nights ago, I was on a conference, or 3 nights ago, I was on a conference call, with TIs, and I go on there a lot to try to talk to TIs, to try to explain some of the stuff and hear people's stories, and they made me so sick, like the whole room started spinning. I fell over, and I had to crawl to the bathroom. I started throwing up uncontrollably, and I threw up for like 2 hours, and the whole time it was like I felt like I was just in a I was like just being spun around in circles, it just wouldn't stop. And then like after like 2 hours, and I mean, I hung up on the call. Obviously, I like threw the phone away from me, and then I just crawled into the room and just immediately passed out. And again, woke up, with just like crazy dizziness, still, and the trembling. I've woken up 2 different times in the last 2 months where I was laying in bed and I had my hand, I think it was on this side actually. My hand was pressed on this side against my neck, and my whole head was throbbing. And I was like, I woke up basically like sleeper holding myself, like pressing my carotid.
Okay.
And just
so
woke
you
up.
were doing it yourself, like somehow you
Yeah.
were. Holy crap. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I woke up like that 2 different times. I've woken up multiple times. Sleepwalking, walking around. And my, this is a big part of it is, but it's, they can like control you like when you're sleeping or when you're unconscious or when you're in sedated states. And my wife, you know 9 months ago, or it was actually 6 months ago, she came up to me and just told me she was pregnant, and I was so confused. Um, and I didn't know, and I was like, well, how? And she said she's 3 months pregnant. She just telling me, and and then I mean, that whole time I went back 3 months in the past, and I was like, we barely even had, we weren't really having sex. I was being tortured the whole time, and you know, and then I remembered multiple times, a year before I became like full on targeted, that I had woken up in the middle of the night having sex with my wife, and I was just unconscious, and like I'm on top of her having sex, and I just woke up in the middle of it. And at the time, like I didn't, wasn't being targeted and all this stuff was going on. So I was just like, oh, all right, I'll go with it. But I mean, now, like I'm thinking that, they can use this remote neural monitoring to kind of commandeer your body when you're unconscious, and they can share your experiences. And I think that's what's going on. And I think that these people, they basically made me impregnate my wife. Um, when I was when I was sleeping. So now, our baby's just got born. He's 3 weeks old now. Um, and I'm horrified because with all this going on, I mean, it's like they're like trying to take me out. And my wife is still, you know, not normal. Um, I mean, it's like they can make her just like go nuts at any point, and they do. But yeah, I mean, I think that I mean, I don't know if you watched the Richard Syrett thing, but I got into like how V2K was talking a lot about how what they're doing with my wife is basically being able to you know put her into states and possibly take advantage of her. Although I have no proof of it, so I don't know if any of that's even true. All I know is that they definitely can control her emotional states and can control what she thinks. Like she will make wild accusations at me and has got me in all sorts of trouble. You know, just ever since this has happened. Um, but now it's like they wanted a kid in the situation. And I'm horrified. Really. Because now I'm still.
This is disturbing. This is disturbing, and it's like having a child should be something of like a great miracle, and then you're like, I don't know how this happened. And like you said, you woke up having sex, and you're like, this happened a couple times, and you're like, okay, but I'll just go with it. Now, yeah, this is now. Have you ever tried like completely isolating yourself to remove these signals in any way, shape, or form, such as like some sort of like Faraday cage or anything along that line? Is there a possibility of making a Faraday cage that big? I know you can put your device, you can make your own Faraday cage for your devices, but for yourself, is that a possibility?
No, I mean no, because if I do anything um, like that, or my wife, then she starts accusing me of being mentally ill. And she'll literally say that she'll call the police and send me to the hospital. So there's that aspect of it, and beyond that, it's extremely expensive. And these people, when they really started hitting me hard with the V2K and Stoughton, um, I was kept without a job for 8 months. I applied for I think it was like 220 jobs on Indeed, and had a good resume, and I couldn't get hired anywhere. It was like nothing would come through on my phone. So like it put us in the hole. They made me lose my license. Like I went. They drove me nuts at one point where I went driving past a police officer that told me to stop, and they ended up like got into like a short like high speed chase basically, just because I was freaking out. And then I just pulled over and surrendered, and I lost my license. And now the RMV is there was a clerical error where even though I went through all of the steps I had to do to get my license back, they said that my license is also suspended in Rhode Island. So when I contacted Rhode Island, I said, all right, let me unsuspend it here. And they said, oh no, Massachusetts has to unsuspend it first. So both states are saying the opposite of the other state. So now I have to hire a lawyer for $1,800 just to clear, basically clear up a clerical error to get my license back. So like I've been completely like financially hobbled by this whole situation. I mean, I can't even drive a car anymore. That my whole life's been turned upside down. So yeah, I mean the Faraday cage thing, from what I've heard from other people, is that it doesn't work. It seems to work. When I talked to Dr. John Hall, he told me that it's basically a an ELF carrier wave with other frequencies on top of it, or oscillating frequencies on top of it. And ELF, extremely low frequency, can pass through a lot of that that Faraday cage stuff, and that's why this works so well. Because when this was happening, like I went out like out in the middle of the woods. I would go out in the middle of the woods, and they would make me think that that it wasn't working anymore, and then they would just hit me like super hard and drive me nuts or make me sick or make me like feel like horrible pain. So everything I've looked into, I haven't found any type of shielding that actually works. And when I talk to all these different TIs and all the different things they do, I mean, they'll say things like, "Oh, it works for a little while and then it doesn't work." And it's like, well, if it's a technology that works a certain way, then if you have shielding for it, it should work all the time. Like I don't know why it's shifting around.
Yeah,
So I
it
think
shouldn't
that
work for a little bit and then work, then stop working and then work and not work. In that case, that would seem that they're just messing with you. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's working, and then okay, we're going to turn it back on, and just even just to mess
Yeah.
with you more. Because if you tried it and it instantly didn't work, okay, you would know. Or if you tried it and it worked for good, that would be great. But if they want to mess with you even more, it just pretends that it works. It would be like someone turning the power on and off. Like you're like, what's going on? And it's turning on and off, and you're just you add even more confusion to it. This all. Then
that's Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that this is like very traumatic, extremely traumatic. To this point, I've heard these stories, and it's just, is there a way out? Do you believe that is there a way to get away from this all, to escape it?
No. I mean, I don't want to be like Mr. Doomer guy, but yeah, like I've gone over every single thing I could. I mean, that's why I started researching this technology like crazy, was to try to save my wife and to stop my torture. And no, I mean, the only thing that I've found any type of relief from is by using like an EMP device, like a small handheld EMP device, and kind of running that over my head and body a little bit. And that seems to, like, I actually feel like way better after I do that. That was one thing I learned from Onion Head Andrew, which makes sense because, like, if there's implants or whatever, then the EMP would like kind of disrupt it for a little while. So that works a little bit, but then anything else, no, I don't see any way to escape this. And like this is like, we're talking about like the countries that rule everything: America, England, Israel, Canada, a lot of the European countries. They're all using this technology, and that's why they're not investigating any of this crap. They're either using, I mean, I think that they're using organized crime, for human experimentation data and for human trafficking, and then overall, there's a big mass mind control agenda that's going on, and this is something that is hitting everybody, anybody that's in this grid, that's around 5G, that's around the telecommunication system that's set up here, because that's where it's got to be coming from that. It's like it's the satellites and the telecommunications. Yeah, everybody's getting hit with it. They can blanket whole areas with it. I mean, this technology has been around since the 1960s. And I think that it's so advanced now that, like we're rolling into I mean, before my whole thing was like that I wanted to flee with my wife to Thailand back before I was targeted, because I was like 2030 is coming, and I know like the whole Agenda 21. I want to get out of here, and I was saying that back in 2019. And then all this stuff happened in 2023, and they just shut me down. I'm not going anywhere. And that was the only thing that I could find to try to escape things, was just try to go to an undeveloped country that didn't have this kind of infrastructure set up. Because I think we're all on lockdown here, and I don't see any way to really stop it. I'm just trying to like get the word out, spread as much information as I can, and try to figure out like this ridiculously horrifying puzzle of advanced technologies that have this, organized crime influence, government influence, and then like behind it, there's a definite spiritual, like occult type of thing. Like my V2K tortured me relentlessly for no reason. They kept me up for months on, like, basically, I mean, I probably slept like maybe 3 nights a week for months and months, just being tortured all night long. Run around the house being horrified, as these people were basically just like, enjoying it. I mean, I don't understand, where the human testing data comes in on that. It seems like there's like a definitely sadistic, satanic element to it.
Now, Ben, if you don't mind me, if you're willing to go longer, I do have a couple more questions. You had mentioned this organized crime, and when in the email you mentioned the finders. Can you go into that a little bit, if you want to keep this interview going? Because I'm more than happy to keep going with this.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I mean, the finders. So I mean, when I was basically trying to figure out, what the heck is going on here, and the big thing with my V2K and what I saw happen with my wife. I mean, I saw her being put into like complete hypnotic states. At one point, like when I was talking to her in Stoughton, they made her just go into a complete hypnotic state. Her head low into her chest, her eyes closed. She was unconscious. I shook her hands; they were limp, and then she just got up and just said, "Get away from me," and then just walked in the other room and sat down. So they can put people into complete hypnotic states. I imagine, and then it's all a lot of speculation. But I imagine that, if you've ever heard of Project Monarch, and these type of things, using dissociative identity disorder to basically program splintered personality states or identity alters, and you could basically have like people that you could traffic. You could have you can program school shooters, you could program assassins, you could program all these different things. I think that that's going on a lot more now, because I think with this technology, they've reached a point where they can do it a lot more efficiently, and maybe even just pure on remotely, where they don't need to get somebody, they don't need to torture somebody in person and shatter their personality when they're a kid and reprogram them. They might be able to reprogram people as adults at this point. There's no way to know. It's all MK Ultra just went completely underground, and now nobody has any idea what's going on. And now you're talking about they have, whether it's neural implants or nanotechnology, complete access to people's brains and their subconscious and their central nervous system. I think that there's an element of being able to program people, and really hide human trafficking in a way that is horrifying. You could have a legit person that is being trafficked that has no idea that they're being trafficked, and they will actively try to destroy anybody that tries to help them. Under mind control. And I think that's kind of the current state of where we're at now. I mean, the finders, they started off with your classic satanic ritual abuse to children to shatter their personality and reprogram them. And then they were, working with the CIA, because, pedophilia is like high currency to these people. And it's invaluable. As far as what these losers are willing to pay to do this stuff to kids, but then on top of that, it's the best blackmail that they could ever have. They can't blackmail people for being gay anymore. They can't blackmail people for really having affairs. That only goes so far. If you can get that somebody was with an underage or a kid, you got the best. I mean, that's all you need, and you could control a whole country doing that. You can control a whole country doing that. And I think that that's where we're at now. So if you look at it from that angle, I think that that's what's happening. And with me, my situation, I mean, I don't know what else this is. I mean, it looks like they're basically getting ready to, I mean, they're trying to kill me at this point. I'm going for this MRI, and I'm going to try to schedule a neurologist appointment, and that's going to take like 3 months, 4 months, if I'm lucky. I don't know what these people are doing, but I feel like my mental capacity has probably gone down by, I don't know, 30%. Like I can't think like I used to. I'm dizzy all the time. They cause my heart to palpitate and beat out of my chest. They can cause the veins on my temple. They feel like they're going to burst out of my head. I mean, they can cause like physiological responses. They make me have like horrific stomach cramps. Make my feet burn. These people they're messing me up pretty good. And my wife seems to be completely, at this point, I can't even talk to her about any of this stuff at all. And she can just go into states where she will literally just say I'm going to kick you out of the house. And they made her do that before. So, I mean, that's what I'm dealing with. So it seems like they're trying to separate me from my wife and kid. And I think now that they got the kid out of me, my son, that's crazy to say that like that. Now that I have my son, I'm very worried that I'm going to be pushed out of the picture one way or the other. Whether it's them making her just go nuts and kick me out for no reason, or some kind of medical problem is what I'm really more worried about, because they've been surging blood pressure in my head and making it feel like, I mean, just like on the left side of my head especially, just making it feel like my veins are going to pop out of my head. And then when I went in to see the doctor and they said that I'd lost significant hearing in my left ear, that really made me worried, because now I don't know what kind of technology they're using to do this. I don't know if they literally do have somebody in a apartment upstairs that just has a vercator or something just beaming the side of my head with a microwave weapon or some crap. I don't know what this technology is, how these things work. But, I just know that, that I've got real medical problems now, and the behavior that I'm seeing is disturbing. But all you can do is just, I'm just working and trying to stay as normal as possible in this whole situation. And again, I can't say this enough, is I have no V2K anymore. I do not hear any voices. And I'm of sound mind, and I do not want to hurt myself or others. Unfortunately, it's like, I feel like I shouldn't have to say that because it's obvious, but in Massachusetts here, anybody that comes forward talking about being targeted and this type of stuff, they're being thrown into mental institutions and force medicated. And I've met a couple different TIs that they force. I don't know what the name of the injection is, but it's that's like a bi-yearly injection, like antipsychotic or some type of medication, but it fries your brain. It absolutely fries your brain. And I met two different TIs that are just they're gonzo now. Like they're all messed up. So yeah, taking a great risk just doing these interviews, talking about this stuff. But
I agree completely. This is like one horrific experiment that they're doing. And it's and why why are they doing it? You said kind of near the beginning, you're thinking it's like to harvest these negative emotions and it, which kind of ties into demonic, because there is this theory that demons feed off of and again, I hate this word, loosh, which is any type of negative type of emotion we push out. We push out this this energy, and they feed off of it. And it also kind of, it talks, I think about other things is, like adrenochrome, we'll just say, there is something there of feeding off of fear. And for those who don't know what it is, please go look it up, because I'm not going to mention that on the show, because it's something that's pretty a touchy topic that I just can't really talk about. But this is crazy, and And yeah, you are of sound mind. I can see that. I can hear that. And yeah, you don't want to hurt yourself. I think that's important to say. It's kind of like, no, this is who I am and I'm not. And it just seems like they have taken your life and flipped it upside down. And because they couldn't win in the V2K, I don't think like they've moved on to the next level. It's like, okay, we failed at this. Now let's do this. Yeah, it would be very good to see if you could get any type of, take any type of, and I don't mean any type of petroleum based medicine, but there's other things out there that maybe can help you. And I'd be more than willing to give you some advice off air because I'm not a medical doctor.
Okay.
But I will say this is something where I had some really bad heart palpitations. Okay. And something, I was having these really bad heart palpitations and I got stung by a honeybee and immediately gone. Okay. It wasn't like it was gone forever. They did come back, but it was like I was having these heart palpitations almost straight for like 3 weeks, maybe even close to a month. Immediately stung by a bee, gone. And I was like, okay. And one thing that I do is I'm actually a beekeeper and I hadn't been stung by a bee for a while. And then, this happened. I was like, this is interesting. I was talking with a conspiracy theorist, Bart Sibrel. He is the one who wrote he did the movie about a funny thing happened on the way to the moon, where he wrote about that's a hoax. And he was having heart palpitations as well. I had just finished the interview when this happened and I messaged him like, you'll never believe this. And so I sent him that information to, maybe look into bee venom as a, as possibly to help regulate those heart palpitations. But there's something else I will mention off the air as well.
Yeah, because it acts as like an anti-inflammatory. I think people with arthritis also use bee stings, I think. Yeah.
Correct. Here, because I live in Mexico. I moved to Mexico because of, I think Canada was going to shit. So one of the reasons I moved to Mexico was because of that. But, in reality, you can't really run away from it. It's everywhere. But,
oh, yeah.
Yeah. But one of the things is also for you're talking arthritis and inflammation, they use here is scorpion venom as well. That's really? Another thing they use as well. Yeah. Must be pretty similar to the bee venom. But
yeah, I think a lot of this. No, that's great information. I mean, I try to take care of myself as much as possible. I take a supplement called NAC or N-acetylcysteine, and that's basically boosts glutathione, your body's own natural production of it, and helps to kind of clean everything out, all these toxins they're hitting us with. Because a big part of it, whether it's like a EMF based poisoning or just all the crap that they're putting in the air and the water, it works on just turning your body against itself. And one of the worst, the main killer is inflammation, that doctors talk about. So anything you can do to cut down on that would definitely help. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree completely. Inflammation, people don't realize how much inflammation affects us, and we're doing it to ourselves consistently when we're having, like sugar or any type of those things. I was on the carnivore diet. I went on the carnivore diet for a couple of months, and I noticed a huge change in my body, in my mental capacity as well. No more brain fog. And then I went off of it, and next thing I know, my hands are hurting again. I'm like, what the heck? It's this inflammation is setting back in. It is crazy.
Yeah, I think it's a subtle. I mean, you have to look at with the COVID thing, because I was so focused on COVID being a biological weapon, and like the University of Kyoto saying that like all the variants came out at the same time as the main COVID, and that they were all made in a lab. I was focusing on that. When this started happening, I realized that what they're doing with EMF and radio frequency is way beyond anything that I ever imagined. And then I look up, when did 5G get rolled out in America? 2019. Oh, look at that. Coincided right with COVID. And when you look at the capabilities of this technology, it can kill people just, and they can hide it with these biological weapons and all sorts of different illnesses. They can make people diabetic with this. I mean, they can make people inflammation, high blood pressure, make things look very natural. And when you start to understand, oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
With that 5G, they can send out the frequencies to actually control graphene oxide. And
Yeah,
that is one of those things as well. It's like, okay, we want to do all this work. Let's put everybody in their houses. You're not going to see what we're doing. Oh, this has always been there. This is
yeah,
not something new. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think that it was way more coordinated than I thought. Yeah, the whole lockdown thing. They wanted people sitting there next to their routers, getting blasted with Wi-Fi and getting blasted with 5G. And that's really like kind of what was happening with all of this, whether it was to literally fry people's brains and reprogram them, or to just kill them off and make them sick. And that explains why, like, you talk to some people, it's like, oh, I got COVID and I sneezed a couple times, and then other people, it's like I nearly died. It's like, why is there such a variance in symptoms and severity with and it doesn't even like track between who's sick or who's healthy. And now it all makes perfect sense to me now. Yeah, it's this graphene oxide interacting with EMF. And I mean, I'm not a science guy, so like I sit there reading this stuff. I'm sitting there reading scientific papers, trying to read the abstracts of it to understand. Okay, how does a magnetic nanoparticle interact with an EMF field, and at what frequency? And I'm just like, my eyes are glazing over, like, oh Jesus, like that's the point that we're at now. We're like, we have to, yeah. I'm just pushing a corner where we have to try to understand this stuff. And yeah, there's this nanoparticle, technology that they figured out, the way that graphene oxide creates like these, like self-assembling like nanostructures, and then when you take into account that the radiation from Wi-Fi opens up the blood-brain barrier, yeah, you're talking about you never have to inject anybody with an implant ever again. You're basically building nanostructure antennas in people's brains, and then you can control. I mean, you can make them go nuts. You can make their feet fall off. You can make them go, blind. You could do all sorts of stuff remotely. It's absolutely horrifying. And I've seen it firsthand. I mean, and another thing I want to mention was after I did the Strange Planet podcast, my sister, who is developmentally disabled and been taken care of by my mother for years. My sister's 38. Basically, mentality of like a 14-year-old. Right after I did the Richard Syed podcast, she started hearing V2K, and she said that she said that my mother hit her, which my mother would never hit her. My mother loves her very much and has taken care of her whole life. And now she's in a mental ward, and she says she can hear my mother talking through the wall, telling her that she hates her, and that she's killing her pets. And now she refuses to live with my mother, who's her caretaker her whole life. And now she's going to have to be placed into a permanent group home or institution. Right after I went and I did my first interview on YouTube here. And I can't help it. I 100% think it's like a V2K, and they're just, they just hit my family. I mean, yeah, I'm talking to her on the phone, and she's just like, yeah, my, mom's talking to me through the wall, and saying that she hates me and all this stuff. And it completely ripped my family apart with all this stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, this is like,
It's especially when they're targeting your other family members as well. So it's not like isolated. It's not you. It's, now they're, okay, well, you're speaking out. Now we're going to target someone else. Oh, you're not succumbing to this? Now we're going to take control of your wife. Oh, you're not actually succumbing to this? We're going to pull off the V2K off of you, and now we're going to escalate it to the next level, the next program.
yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the only thing I can think is happening there. But yeah, I mean, I just I've been I just want to say, like, please subscribe to my Substack, because I don't know what else to do except for like try to like explain to people what's actually happening, and then not subscribe, follow. I don't charge anything. I just I write basically an article a day in between working. to try to explain, kind of this technology and what's going on. And yeah, I just really just want to help. Like once I start talking to these targeted individuals, I probably talked to, probably 100 or more different targeted individuals at this point. It's extremely sad how much they isolate, and how much people really don't understand, how badly people are being tortured. Because once they get people to a certain point and they're alone in their house, like I'm talking to like 80-year-old people that are just like laying in bed having their feet burned, and hearing like horrifying noises all around their house, that have been targeted for like 20 years, and it's absolutely sad. And I just you know I just I don't know how else to. It seems like what they've done is created like echo chambers, because even on like Substack or any social media, the only people that are actually reading this stuff are kind of like they already know like what's going on. Like nobody will actually read like a targeted individual's like testimony and hear about this stuff and actually think it's real. If they're like in like the general population, as I think of it, like it's weird. It seems like we've been kind of like isolated out. And I'm just trying to like, um, you know, explain things in a way where I post like declassified documents from the Soviet Union or from, the CIA. And actually, the U.S. Navy just came out, I think, 2 days ago, and showed that they spent like 44 million this year already in RF-based weapon research. So, that's a good, piece of solid, evidence. But yeah, I'm just trying to post more technical stuff explaining, like this is actually possible. This is what they can do. This is what they've done in the past, and try to get it out in a way where people that don't really believe this stuff might actually look at it more seriously, to try to spread awareness. Because I think TIs are just the tip of an iceberg. I think that they're being harshly targeted with a technology that most people are being targeted with, and in the future, it's gonna there's more and more TIs every year. I'll put it that way. And yeah, we got to kind of get the word out to people.
I could not agree more with you, Ben. And I want to say thank you so much for coming on. I have one last question before we wrap this up here. But do you see, is it TIs throughout the world, or is it specific locations, like only in the US, or majority are based here, some are here, some are here? Is there certain areas where you have seen I know it's difficult to try to report in, but have you seen where there's some areas maybe where there's less less population of the TIs or greater population of the TIs?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, somebody there's a core is usually horrific dealing with people on there, but there's a guy that actually started getting a world map of reported TIs and the Five Eyes countries. So any country that's a part of the Five Eyes intelligence alliance, and I believe that's, what is it? It's America, England, France, New Zealand, UK, maybe Canada. I don't know, but those countries, all extremely high concentrations as far as like per capita, TIs, and then India. India is actually a very big hotspot for TIs as well. A lot in India, and I've talked to several or I haven't talked to. I've read about several from China and Japan, and those places also have a fair amount of TIs as well. But I think that those are just the ones that are kind of going forward and talking about this stuff, where they're able to kind of keep their head about them, because I think the majority of TIs don't post anything online and don't get the word out. I think that's the nature of this program.
It drives them. It literally drives them crazy, and then they think they're crazy, and they go into mental hospitals as schizophrenia usually is what happens. Have you ever talked to or heard of Jerry Marzinski as well, Ben?
No, who's that?
No, Jerry Marzinski is he's a psychotherapist who has studied schizophrenia for 45 years, and
I do know him. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. What was it? Was it the Malice method or something like that? I forget the method that he has. Mace method. Mace method.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It's interesting because he's gone away from this being a mental disorder. He is realized that there's a pattern that these voices have. And
Yeah.
like, of course, I think this is all connected. This is
Yeah.
all extremely connected. Yeah.
I saw a recent podcast that he did, actually, like a roundtable discussion, and it seemed like they were getting towards the area of talking about targeting. Like it seemed like he was getting to that point where he's like, well, it seems like these people are being targeted to do certain things, and they're attacking them in certain ways, and influencing their behavior in certain self-destructive ways. That's very suspicious. And then he admitted himself that he started having these implanted intrusive thoughts, where he was like out in his yard, and he had the idea all of a sudden to go cut his dog's head off out of nowhere, and he was just like, what? He was like, what is that? So he even admitted himself to starting to get these kind of weird intrusive thoughts out of nowhere, which makes a lot of sense, with somebody like that that's trying to help people that are targeted like that.
Exactly. Ben, I want to thank you so much for coming about this, because you literally have to be very courageous to do this and to be dealt with this and dealing with it the way you are. I thank you. I'm honored that you chose to come on the show, and I think what you're doing is a extreme service to the TI community and to the world itself, because many people don't know. I like how your approach, that it's a very technical approach and trying to, it's not, oh, everybody's out to get me. No. It's a very small few, but they're able to kind of influence many people as well.
Yeah. And thank you for having me on the show. I mean, so much. I mean, I've got so much more to say, but we only have so much time here. But I really appreciate you having me on here, and thank you. I don't know.
Hey, if you're open to it, Ben, the door is open. You're more than welcome to come back, and we can discuss this further. Maybe we can do a roundtable with Jerry. I've done a couple episodes with Jerry, and he has asked me to. He's open to doing more episodes. So I actually think maybe this might be something very interesting to have you and Jerry on together at the same time.
I would love that.
And
I would love that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm down for that.
You know what? I'll make it happen. Okay. And Ben, one last time, your YouTube channel, where is that? And then also your Substack, where can they find that as well?
My YouTube channel is just called Targeting Evil. Targeting Evil. And my Substack is just my name, Benjamin Conine. You can find my Substack. I guess we'll have it in the description there. And it's all free. It's all free. I'm not making any money off this stuff.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ben. And we'll make sure that we get you back on here with Jerry in the near future as well. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right, everyone. That was Ben Conine, and wow, what a story! It's the way he delivered it and the way he broke it down. Not only was he giving you his personal experiences, but he was actually explaining the technicalities of it, so much so that it's understandable, and he's going through the CIA playbook. This is exactly step by step, exactly how they target you, how they torture you. I can't imagine, what he's gone through and what he's still going through. And I got to say he is a very brave man. I hope if you guys are watching or listening, go check out his channel, go check out his Substack, support him while he tries to, bring this to light. And I think that's very important, is bringing this all to light. Okay. So until next time, everyone, keep your curiosity wandering, keep the light lit, and always find your way home.
Beneath the stars where shadows grow, the Nephilim's echoes whisper low. Bigfoot roams through the forest deep, and Dogman prowls where the brave won't sleep. Across lost history we wonder why, seeking the truth that time tried to hide. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies, with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the cold gas flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies. Aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks. In the void of secrets, a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the cold gas flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come and always find your way back home. Legends rise from the earth's deep core, a lost legacy we can't ignore. With every step, the veil grows thin, revealing worlds where the strange begins. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come and always find your way back home.